Akiyoshi, the 1979 bank robbery and the terrifying hostage hell in Japan. Just imagine it, a bank robbery with deafening gunfire, terrified employees cowering on the floor, and even hostages being forced to strip to serve as human shields. Those haunting images lingered in the minds of Osaka's citizens for a long time, and behind it all was a name that sent shivers down everyone's spine: Akiyoshi, a terrifying beginning to the new year. On the afternoon of January 26, 1979, around 3 p.m., the Kitabatake branch of Mitsubishi Bank in Osaka was winding down for the day. Staff were tidying up, a few customers lingered in and out, when suddenly a man walked in, dressed in a black suit, wearing a hat, sunglasses, and a mask. Looked extremely suspicious. People started to take notice. But before anyone could react, bang! He pulled out a gun and fired straight into the ceiling. The bank erupted into chaos. Screams filled the air. Some ran, some dropped to the ground in terror. More than 30 people were instantly taken hostage, with one hand aiming the gun, the other tossing a bag. He ordered the staff to fill it with cash. The only sounds left in the room were crying, gunshots, and a suffocating fear that gripped everyone. 4 people were killed in just a matter of minutes. Amid the chaos, a young man tried to quietly call the police, but unfortunately, the gunman saw him without a word. He pulled the trigger. The man dropped on the spot. Once he had the money, he tried to make his escape, but the moment he stepped outside, police were already there, guns drawn. Still, he didn't flinch. Instead, he fired back, fiercely killing one officer on the spot. And it didn't stop there. Another officer was also hit and died shortly after. And then, with the police closing in and the bank manager fumbling to hand over the rest of the money, he snapped. Losing patience, he turned his gun and shot the manager dead. In just a matter of hours, 4 lives were lost, all because of one deranged man named Akiyoshi. The entire area locked down, and the real nightmare begins. Realizing how serious the situation was, Osaka police deployed a massive force. Hundreds of heavily armed officers surrounded the bank. Every corner within a 500-meter radius was locked down. No one was allowed in or out, knowing he was surrounded. Akiyoshi ordered the bank staff to lower the shutters and lock every exit, turning the place into a fortress of death. It was all to block the police from seeing in or getting close, and from that moment on, the hostage hell he created had only just begun. The cold-blooded robber's horrific power play. Right after severing all ties with the outside world, Akiyoshi began to act. He dragged out each employee one by one for interrogation, demanding everything from the bank's layout to where the money was kept, and how much of it there was. At that moment, a man, let's call him Mr. O, was called up, but instead of giving direct answers, he kept dodging the questions. Speaking in circles, Akiyoshi flew into a rage. He drew his gun, stood about 2 meters away, and bang! Shot Mr. O straight in the shoulder. The bullet hit its mark, and Mr. O collapsed in panic, writhing in pain and terror. But it didn't end there. Still seething with rage, Akiyoshi turned to another man, employee B, and tossed him a folding knife. He gave a chilling order: finish him off. Can you imagine it? Watching your colleague get shot only to be ordered to kill him yourself. Employee B, panicked and trembling, stammered, "I think he's already dead." He passed out from the shock, but instead of letting him go, Akiyoshi calmly said, then cut off his ear, like in the movies. At first, B refused outright, but before he could do anything else, the gun was already pointed at him. In that moment, Varian understood disobeying him meant certain death, with no other choice. B dropped to his knees, crying, apologizing, and with trembling hands used the knife to cut his colleague's ear. And Mr. O, despite the searing pain, despite having his ear sliced off while still alive, didn't let out a single sound. He knew that if he so much as groaned, his colleague would be executed on the spot for lying, so he gritted his teeth and endured. until he finally passed out from the pain and blood loss. The innocent, forced to become human shields inside the bank at that moment. It was pure hell. Screams and cries of terror echoed from every corner. Suddenly, Akiyoshi noticed that one of the shutters wasn't fully closed. There was still a small gap. He instantly flew into a rage, panicked. He knew all too well. Even the tiniest opening meant a sniper could take him out at any moment. Immediately, he turned on the hostages, threatening them, forcing them to barricade every exit with desks and chairs, sealing off every last gap. But he didn't stop there. What Akiyoshi did next would send chills down anyone's spine. He forced all the bank employees, men and women alike, to strip completely naked. One by one, they were ordered to stand bare in front of doors and windows. Their bodies turned into human shields. The female employees were made to surround him, forming a grotesque circle of human flesh as living barrier. That horrifying move proved one thing. Akiyoshi knew exactly what he was doing. He understood. The police wouldn't dare make a move with hostages standing directly in the line of fire. A twisted strategy, grotesque, but disturbingly cunning. And just as he calculated, the police had no choice but to halt their operation. Their original plan to storm the building was scrapped. Akiyoshi remained in full control of the bank, while the hostages, paralyzed by fear, could do nothing but endure. Then he forced a female employee to make a call to the outside, demanding that the police stay away and not attempt any breach. And just like that, the standoff between him and law enforcement dragged on. Steeped in unbearable tension, police take action and uncover a horrifying scene. Time kept ticking. Outside, everything was murky. Inside, completely sealed off. The police were growing anxious. They had no idea what was happening inside, or if the hostages were even still alive. And finally, they made their move. Quietly, a team of officers approached the shutter armed with handheld drills. They worked slowly, carefully, terrified of making a sound, bit by bit, until they finally managed to bore a small hole, just enough to peek inside. But when they looked through that hole, they froze. Akiyoshi sat swaying in his chair, still gripping his gun tightly. Surrounding him were the female hostages, still standing naked, used as living shields. The rest of the employees huddled on the floor, trembling in fear, too terrified to move. The scene was haunting beyond words. The hostage rescue strategy, attempt 1, failed because of a mother's voice. Around 10:30 that night, 7 hours after the incident began, the police finally discovered the true identity of the gunman. They immediately went to his home and sought the help of Akiyoshi's mother and uncle, hoping that the voice of a loved one might persuade him to lay down his weapon. But to everyone's shock, the moment Akiyoshi heard his mother's voice on the phone, he slammed the receiver down without saying a word, just like that. The first plan completely collapsed. Attempt 2, paying a debt to save lives. The next morning, things took another unexpected turn. Akiyoshi ordered the bank staff to gather all the remaining cash, about 5 million yen, to pay off his debts. He even carefully wrote down a list of creditors and handed it to the staff, instructing them to settle the debts and then return. In exchange, he promised to release one hostage. But unexpectedly, this gave the police a golden opportunity. As soon as the bank staff stepped out, officers quietly approached and began coordinating with them. They gave clear instructions. If the chance arose, signal using the pre-arranged code. After more than a day of complete isolation, Akiyoshi began to grow hungry. He decided to make a deal. If they gave him food, he would release one hostage. And so, one by one, some hostages were slowly released, but inside, many others still remained trapped and waiting for rescue. Third attempt, the final gambit, a mother's letter. As the standoff neared its second day and all other options had failed, the police played their final card. They asked Akiyoshi's 73-year-old mother to write him a handwritten letter. When the letter was brought inside, Akiyoshi had a female employee read it aloud to him. The girl trembled as she stammered through the words in the letter. His mother poured out her heart, urging him to stop, to lay down his weapon. He sat quietly, listening to every word, then whispered, "I love my mother very much. She's the only one." It seemed he was starting to waver. Shortly after, Akiyoshi ordered the employees he had forced to strip earlier to put their clothes back on properly. The perfect opportunity, and the shot that ended it all. Time dragged on. Both the police and the hostages inside the bank were exhausted. Everyone just wished for it to be over soon. Then, on the morning of January 28, 1979, at exactly 8:42 a.m., the long-awaited good news finally arrived. A signal was sent out by a bank employee who had previously been allowed to leave by Akiyoshi to pay off debts. This person had secretly been cooperating with the police all along, and this time, the information was more crucial than ever. Akiyoshi was dozing off, a newspaper still in his hand. Immediately, the police knew. This was the golden opportunity. Without hesitation, the special forces sprang into action, quickly planning their breach. Inside, Akiyoshi was still dozing, completely unaware he was surrounded from all sides. By the time he sensed something was wrong, it was already too late. Startled awake, panic took over and he grabbed his gun, aiming to fire at the police, but the special forces were one step ahead. Bang! 8 shots rang out in rapid succession. 3 bullets hit their mark. Akiyoshi slumped from his chair, blood pooling across the floor, and in just a matter of seconds, the standoff that had lasted over 42 hours finally came to an end. Akiyoshi, the killer who had spread terror throughout Osaka, was carried out. Bloodied and battered, an ambulance rushed him to Osaka Police Hospital, where doctors did everything they could to save his life. But at 5:34 p.m. that day, Akiyoshi took his last breath. The most brutal bank robbery in Japan's history was officially over. Who was the culprit? His name was Akiyoshi Umekawa, born in 1948 from Otake, Hiroshima. When he was just 5 years old, his parents divorced. Afterwards, Akiyoshi went to live with his father in a rural area called Haikara-cho. But after only a few months, he couldn't stand the life there and returned to live with his mother in Otake. Akiyoshi's mother, a hard-working woman who worked as a cook in a dormitory, had to wake up early and work late just to earn every penny to support her son. But no matter how poor she was, she spoiled him. Whatever Akiyoshi wanted, she tried her best to give it to him, and perhaps it was this excessive indulgence that made him rebellious and selfish. From a young age, Akiyoshi had a habit. If his demands were not met, he would fly into a rage, break things, and sometimes even hit his own mother. By the time he was 15, while struggling with money, Akiyoshi secretly broke into the house of his employer, where he worked part-time. Not only did he rob the safe, but he also coldly murdered the employer's wife. A truly brutal murder. But since he was not yet 16 at the time, Akiyoshi was only sent to a juvenile reformatory. 18 months later, he was released. No sentence, no awakening. It seemed that after being released, he would turn his life around. He got a job as a bartender at a bar in Osaka and appeared hardworking and decent. But then misfortune struck. The bar went bankrupt. Akiyoshi lost his job, and debts piled up to nearly 5 million yen. And as if sliding down once again, he chose to solve his problems with guns, planning the bank robbery that shocked Japan that year. Ironically, the money he stole and had others used to pay off his debts was eventually all confiscated by the police, and as for him, he lost his life. It is known that Akiyoshi was one of the rare criminals in Japan to be shot dead at the scene by police. Chief of Police Yoshida, who directly led the operation, also admitted, "Akiyoshi was too dangerous, we had no other choice." Looking back, perhaps the root cause wasn't just Akiyoshi's circumstances or personality. The fact that from a young age, he was used to thinking, if he wanted something, he had to have it. And once that twisted mindset went uncorrected, then, perhaps, Such a tragic ending was inevitable. The question is, if children keep growing up with unconditional indulgence, then how many more Akiyoshis will the future hold?